Welcome to Power of the Tribe podcast. I'm your host, John Connors, and today we're going to talk about etiquette for jiu-jitsu and for life, I guess. That's what we always talk about, jiu-jitsu and life, right?
Exactly. And I'm glad we're talking about etiquette because there's, I think of the gym and there's been terrible breaches in general etiquette. I think manners like how to pour a cup of tea, how to hold a cup of tea properly. I see terrible breaches in the gym. So I think, is that what we're focusing on today?
We're going to talk a little bit about which fork you should use and
right. And
so forth.
I believe you read it was Miss Manners' Guide to Excruciatingly Correct Behavior.
That's right, Dan. I saw you using a fish spoon incorrectly once. I was appalled.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So I think a lot of people in the gym could use this.
I think everybody could.
Yeah.
Do you know where the word etiquette comes from? The etymology. You know I'm a big fan of etymology. I like to find out the original basis of a word. Do you know what it is?
I do not.
I did not know. I Googled it, so I'm not going to pretend I'm smart, but I looked it up. Do you have any idea, Dimitri? Probably not, right? It's comes from the French, essentially meaning ticket or small card. So as you know, the E-T-T-E part of a word, that's a suffix that usually means a diminutive, like a small thing. But apparently when you went to the royal court in France, they would give you a little card that would tell you what you're supposed to be, how you're supposed to act, or how you're supposed to address people.
Right.
And
we don't get those cards anymore.
We don't get those cards, yeah.
So this podcast is going to be everyone's little card.
This is going to be your little card, your little passport to jiu-jitsu etiquette. Correct, yeah. But I thought that's weird, isn't it? I thought about this, that it seems to me that a lot of things in life are about status and hierarchy. And a lot of rules of etiquette are about status and hierarchy, correct?
Right.
I think some of it is about just trying to prevent unnecessary friction between individuals, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of it is about hierarchy, like.
But it's good. We've touched on it in the podcast before, but it's good to talk about because there's two other aspects of etiquette. One is a lot of these are difficult to bring up, or it's not straightforward. It's not like saying, how do I finish this arm bar? You don't really want to ask like a lot of these kinds of things in the gym. You don't want to say, am I supposed to?
They're often unwritten rules, which why doesn't somebody write these goddamn things down, right?
Well,
why are they unwritten?
Everyone should grab a pen right now.
Put it on a little card.
Right.
Write it down.
Yeah, wear your little etiquette card, this podcast.
I've always had mixed feelings about ritual and etiquette, especially as it pertains to martial arts. How do you feel about it?
I feel how I would have guessed that you felt, which is not even that mixed, sort of like generally anti, like generally like you don't. I remember when you started your academy in Norwood.
In Dedham, you mean?
In Dedham.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. In Dedham, and you were thinking about this. You were like, should we?
I'm still thinking.
Yeah, but a lot of these things
later.
are like, should we always say the Pledge of Allegiance? Should we have a Brazilian? I believe there was a time when you sang the Brazilian national anthem before every class.
Actually, I danced it.
Oh, yeah, you would do a Brazilian dance before every class, and then you quickly stopped that. And then, but basically you were like, ever since it's always, and should we line up in belt order? Should we bow? What, should we bow before you get on the mat? Should you bow before, like what, there's a lot of these, and usually you've come down on the side of saying forget it.
That's the way I lean. Yeah, but I'm one of those kinds of people that don't like somebody telling me what to do. You know what I mean?
You think that's the origin of, like, the basis of it?
It's part of it. It's like Kramer when he's in the AIDS march and they go, "Here's your ribbon," and he goes, "I don't want to wear a ribbon."
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to wear the ribbon? Yeah.
Right.
They freak out him. Yeah. They go, "Well, everybody's wearing the ribbon." He goes, "And that's why I don't want to wear it." Yeah. So I'm kind of one of those people a little bit, I guess. But I'll tell you, when I started jiu-jitsu, January 1999, in Watertown, Mass, at Boston Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Roberto Maia, we had very few rules of etiquette.
Really?
Very few.
You'd think old school jiu-jitsu gym would have had a number of them.
You would think that, Dan, but it was the complete opposite. And if I remember correctly, we just called him Roberto. We didn't call him professor or even coach. It was just Roberto. And we didn't line up before. My memory could be wrong, but I don't remember lining up before class. I remember you would all run in a circle around the mat, which I wasn't a big fan of either. The warm-up, we would do that and then do some jumping jacks and some push-ups and get in a circle. And we'd sort of just in a circle warm up, and then either Roberto or another instructor would present the lesson, and that was about it. Yeah.
Some of this, right, is sort of the martial arts versus sports aspect, right? Like I think a lot of football teams or wrestling teams don't like bow before they get on the mat.
Oh, right.
Kind of stuff. So maybe sort of, do you see it more as a sport or do you see it more as a martial art?
Well, back then I thought we definitely looked at it as a martial art and a way of fighting. And I think the way I remember it is we prided ourselves in the fact that we had stripped away all the unnecessary etiquette and ceremony and ritual. And, man, we were just there to get better at fighting or jiu-jitsu or what have you. And I think we almost looked down upon traditional martial arts that had all that ritual and etiquette and ceremony. And we thought that they were being a little frivolous, putting energy into all that. And here we are in 2021. And I think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu's caught up with the other martial arts with all the rules and etiquette and ceremony now. Isn't that strange?
Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't, especially because, I mean, I think we all remember when it was sort of a pride of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that they didn't do these kinds of things.
That's what I remember.
About results and real world. And then
it was a little bit like Jeet Kune Do and Bruce Lee. It's like, keep what works and throw away the rest, and it's a very practical application of martial arts. So
right, and then Jeet Kune Do itself became like you have to use trapping, and you have to like they would not throw away. They were like that's not typical Jeet Kune Do. That like
that's not original.
They themselves got stuck in like here are the things that work, and we must stick with these things that work.
Now, why do you think it's so? It seems like you're saying that. Even something that starts as sort of a revolution where we're going to be very independent and practical, it ends up sort of devolving into bureaucracy and ritual. And I feel like it's almost like that sometimes people in power, as a way to keep in power, they start setting up rules in order to
and that's
solidify their position.
My first thought as you were asking that was like lack of, I don't know if I want to say visionary, but good or visionary leaders. Like I would think if Bruce Lee stayed alive and stayed on top of it and he could make announcements like this trapping business isn't working that well, and then everyone say okay and change it in his absence, maybe then you had leaders that would no longer that would sort of fall into a party line. That's sort of what you're saying too. Like you don't have a strong leader.
Do you vaguely remember I vaguely remember Helio Gracie at some point sort of souring on the way promotions were going and belts were going, and then he declared he was just going to wear a blue belt. Do you remember that?
I don't remember wearing the blue belt. I
remember something like that. I don't want to get it wrong. He's obviously a legend, so I don't want to screw up. I remember something like that. He wasn't happy with how promotions were happening and things were going, and I think he wanted to maybe de-emphasize this whole chase for the black belt, and so he decided not to wear his black belt. I could be wrong, I don't know, but it sounds like something like that happened. But I can empathize with that feeling though, for sure, that when people chase all these belts and whatnot, it's kind of a distraction,
right? But some of the point of, I guess, what we're going to talk about is there's some reason for these. It's not that simple. It's not like that's the answer isn't as simple as get rid of all of it.
Everything has a plus minus, right, Dan? Right. Everything has a good and a bad, and you got to net it out and find out whether it's worth keeping or not, right?
Right. Plus, it's worth knowing what the current etiquette is. You yourself might think, I don't want to bow, but if everyone else in the sport is bowing, you need to know that's what's happening.
Well, there's other things that are official rules. So if you compete in the IBJJF, you have to wear your uniform has to meet specifications, which just makes sense, so that we're all using the same tools. and it has to be clean and it has to be relatively new. You can't have something that's too worn out, which is good. They want people to represent the sport well and look smart. And then you have to stand on the edge of the mat, and the referee signals you to come in, and you're supposed to bow sort of to the referee or the mat and then walk on and shake hands.
Yeah, and so even the sports have those.
Those are very
right?
reasonable,
like,
I think.
Like wrestling has those things, right? Wrestling has
Probably.
certain shake hands before the match, shake hands after the match. These kinds
You know what they have in IBJJF? You can't speak as a competitor. You're not allowed to speak to the referee. I think you're not allowed to speak to your opponent, which I think is pretty good.
That's actually a good rule. I didn't know that rule. It's a good rule.
Yeah.
Just wipes a lot of stuff out, right?
Right.
Yeah. You don't have to start saying what you can say or what you can't say. It's like, just don't say anything.
It starts nipping things in the bud. Yeah,
Right.
It's like pretty firm guardrails for human behavior. I think it's a pretty good rule. Yeah. Actually, what's his name? Rafael Lovato, he lost a match in a major tournament recently because he said something and the ref gave him a fault, and that was enough for him to lose the match. He was being reset from the outside in the middle of the mat, and he thought he had certain grips, and the ref was presenting him with different grips, a slightly different position that wasn't as advantageous. And he just the ref went to move his hand or something, and he just reflexively said, "No, I was over here." And then the guy faulted him. Yeah.
That seems a little...
It's a little strict application of the rules.
Could he sign language it like...
Yeah. I don't know. All right, let's go through I wrote down a list, Dan, of 21 different sort of rules of etiquette that I've seen in conventions, and I have some thoughts about them. They're in no particular order, but I'm interested in what you think too. So I'm gonna come right out of the gate with titles. So, as I said, we used to call Roberto, and then when did you start jiu-jitsu, Dan? 2004, something like this.
Something.
Yeah. So when you started with me, I was originally a brown belt. Yeah. And then I got my black belt in 2006. But everyone, you just called me John and Steve Whittier, Steve.
Yeah.
And that was it. We didn't even call each other coach, I don't think, right?
Yeah.
And I think it was pretty good. But I could see how for new students coming in, it's probably good maybe to have a title of some.
This is a case where, you switched over to... And it was a conscious decision to saying, I'm going to put professor into...
I had to go with professor, Dan, because I felt if I don't call myself professor and some naive student is evaluating where they want to train, and they go, oh, they have a professor over here at Connors. They
this
only
is just John.
have this guy John, whoever the hell he is. So I thought, just to be clear, I better start using professor. And I felt weird about it. And then it felt less weird.
Get used to it,
now
right?
It feels kind of weird, too. I don't know.
At first, I thought it was weird because at the time when people were putting that into place, I was a professor.
You were an actual professor.
I was an actual professor at a college. And so it was sort of like, the title's professor. I'd be like, you're not a professor.
Right.
Like, what, like, and so it was sort of strange but even as an actual professor at an actual university, not even had to call me professor. Do you know what I mean? Like, even there, when your title is like on your tax returns, professor.
Yeah.
I'd be like, if there's a small group, I'd be like, you don't have to call me professor.
Here's the other thing, Dan. I used to understand it that if you owned your academy and you're an instructor in your own academy, you were a professor. Now it seems to be bleeding out. Now I hear them calling every black belt professor now.
But they're not even that's not a...
Someone that doesn't even own an academy.
What about, are they an instructor at least?
Maybe they're an instructor, but before I thought it was reserved only for the head of an academy. Now it seems like it's not reserved for that. The other thing that's interesting is all these rules here that we're going to go over, people act as if we've been doing it this way, Dan, for the last 2,000 years.
Yeah, right.
Since
like,
the Israelites came out of the desert, we've been using professor. And it's like, I think 6 years ago. You know what I mean? I don't know when this whole professor thing started. But they weren't using it, to my knowledge, back in 1999
it's not
or
like
early 2000s.
It's too late to change it.
Right, but it's not like it's carved and etched in stone. We got to call it this. So I think it's very strange. I don't know. Now,
only time-
now I don't mind what anybody calls me, professor, coach, or John. It doesn't matter at all.
Sort of also depends what you're comfortable with. If someone's 12 years old, maybe they should lean more towards professor. If someone's older than you, maybe then they could call you
I don't think there's
John.
anyone left who's older than me, but yeah.
And alive, not. but if
Did I ever tell you the story? I had a young guy come in for a class, and he kept calling me Connor. Did I tell you that story? So this comes in for one class, and he's a nice young guy. He's probably like 22 or so. I don't know how old he was. And then he keeps going, "Hey, Connor." And then he would ask me a question. "Hey, Connor," which is like the hey and then the name is kind of abrupt. It's not very graceful, you know what I mean? And then finally he said it, and I was like, "Hey." I go, "Hey, my name's not Connor." I go, "You can call me Professor, you can call me Coach, you can call me John, you can call me Mr. Connors, but don't call me Connor."
Yeah.
And he was like, and I'm thinking, it's Connor's Martial Arts Academy. Do you think I used my first name to name the Bob's Martial Arts?
Yeah, like Connors. That's fun.
And there's no apostrophe. Do you not? Did you learn this in third grade that you put an apostrophe then an S?
Most people
do you see the apostrophe?
Haven't.
Unbelievable. So, needless to say, he never came back. I don't know. Maybe I was.
Also, there is a difference. If someone's like 30 years younger than you,
yeah,
there should be a little more respect, right? Like a little.
Well,
more, I think.
So back in 2005, when we started the academy, everyone would call me John, and then one day, I don't know when it was, 2007 or something, some guys that were right out of college said, "Okay, Mr. Connors," and I was like, "Whoa!" I felt super old.
Yeah. I mean, everyone has that moment where they're called Mister or something, but I think we're older than that now. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I'm far beyond that.
Yeah. Doesn't bother me anymore. But it's all context, like you said. It's like the tone of voice, and because I was thinking right before you said that the only time it would bug me, someone asking to be called professor, is if I was like, "Why are you asking?" You know what I mean? Someone that's like young or doesn't own an academy or maybe doesn't teach, and they're like, "You can call me professor." And 20 years younger than me, "You can call me professor." I'd be like, "What is this?" Like,
No, another thing
in context that would annoy me. I'd be like,
what
why
else?
do I have to call you professor?
Yeah, I wouldn't like that.
Yeah.
Somebody used to call me by my last name. That used to rub me the wrong way. I own the academy. They go, "Hey, Connors."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't like that. I'm not sure what's going on here, but I do not like that."
Same thing. It's tone of voice, I'm sure, and the person, and they're probably younger than you. Or
And they're projecting, I think they're projecting that they're approaching me from a higher status. That's why they're doing it. You know what I mean? They're kind of trying to pull me down a little bit. I'm like, "Yeah, this isn't working for me, man. Yeah, you're not winning me over this way, dude." And the hey before your name.
Yeah. And again, I bet if they used the right tone of voice, it wouldn't have bothered you. Like if they were the right person using the right tone of voice, like similar in age to you, friendly.
That one wouldn't work. Kind of the way I grew
maybe.
up, Dan, that last name thing, that was like on the streets of Rossi. Yeah, that was like the guy who was trying to figure out whether he should kick your ass or not. He was like, "Hey, Connors, where's your brother now, huh?"
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
So you're just never going to work with that one.
Probably not. No. I had this one guy, I think I mentioned him. He was a legend in our neighborhood, legendary fighter, Kamungus.
Yeah.
He would say, "There's a Kamungus among us." This guy was just like a force of nature. And my brother, I have an older brother, Jimmy. So he would only refer to me as, "Hey, Jimmy Connors' brother. Hey, Jimmy Connors' brother." Like he would just put it all together like one word. And then he started calling me, "Hey, Jimmy Conosopoulos' brother." He thought it was funny that he would change their name to Conosopoulos instead of Connors. But yeah, it was pretty funny,
but
actually.
It was you don't mess with Kamungus when
I did not give any pushback on that. No, that would be very unwise. Yeah, that would have been crazy. Yeah.
Probably anyone with a nickname like Kamungus is not someone you really want to. Was it a last name?
No, that was a nickname. He just came up with. Somebody came up with that. But yeah, the people who messed with him, 99% of them, I think, regretted it. That's for sure. Yeah. Okay, now number 2, Dan. I don't know if you ever caught this one. This one started getting hot. I don't know, like 7 or 8 years ago. Us.
Oh, right.
Are you familiar with that?
Of course.
So back in 1999,
I didn't know it was hot though. Now.
Nobody was doing us.
Oh, really? I thought it was old school.
I haven't heard about it until 7 or 8 years ago. I started noticing it on social media, on Facebook. Somebody would post something, and you would get a us. And I try to research the etymology of the word us. Do you have any?
OSS, right?
I think it's commonly spelled OSS. Yeah. And it's not clear. Like I saw some reference to it's a Japanese
and the meaning
naval
is like
term or
respect,
something.
or kind of like I see
Respect.
what you're saying. Or respect.
Yeah. Yeah. But people are throwing around like we've been throwing that around for thousands of years.
It sounds like something that's been thrown around for thousands of years.
But I couldn't find a good meaning. I thought I read that it was something like some kind of acronym for that the Japanese Navy used somehow, and then people just thought. But that don't quote me on that. That might not be crystal clear. But I notice it's tailing off now. I don't see us that much anymore or hear it that much anymore.
So it's kind of a fad.
I think it was a little bit of a
Us
fad. I'm wondering if they used it in other martial arts like karate or judo or something, some other Japanese martial art.
Maybe. Have you said us to anybody?
Have I said us to anybody? Yeah. No.
Or written it?
No. I just say respect or something like that. Respect to you. But yeah, no. Yeah.
Doesn't bother me. I just
doesn't bother me either.
Thing,
no. In Muay Thai, they do like a prayer hands like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, wait, and there was
a little bit of bow. I think.
But there was other words too. I can't remember them.
Sweaty cop.
Yeah.
So, and then I think how you hold your hands indicates deference. You know what I mean? Like, so the lower I bow and the higher I raise my hands, I'm showing more deference than if my hands stay low and I don't bow that much. Which brings it back to sort of social standing, social status, and hierarchy again, right?
Right.
A lot of these. Did you know? I found out that in Cantonese, they have a different word for your father's sister and your mother's sister. Different words for aunt. And then they have a different word for your mother's older sister and your mother's younger sister.
It makes sense to have different words for these things now that you bring it up.
Interesting, right?
Yeah.
And the older sister is, they're getting afforded more status somehow with the language that's being used. That's interesting.
Which language did you say this was?
That's Cantonese. Yeah. It feels like the Asian languages seem to account more for respect for elders and social status.
Do you remember an old Steve Martin thing where he'd be like, in France, they have a different word for everything. That's what it's reminding you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
and then the other thing of like the Eskimos have 60 words.
Yeah, that's bullshit. I think. Yeah.
Maybe I was thinking in Canton, does that mean they have lots more mothers, sisters, and like why do they need more words for it? I
just think they're valuing the
or valuing
social
family
hierarchy, social status.
Social status. Okay.
Okay. Now we've got through 2 of the 21. Third one is bowing, just about bowing in general, right? So we don't really do any bowing at my academy, Dan. I don't know. I always figured we were all adults. Maybe we really shouldn't be bowing to each other that much. I don't know. What do you think?
I haven't seen it. I remember karate where you bow to get on and off the mat.
Right.
It's not terrible, right? Like it's not.
Right.
It doesn't bother me. Like I almost get the positivity of it, of like have some respect in this space. You know what I mean? Like in this.
I could see that bowing to the space itself.
Yeah.
I think that's probably pretty good because.
Like bow before you get on the map.
It might help you. Enter on.
Get your head in the right place. And,
Yeah.
And if you, especially so, like when you bow, think about like what you're going to accomplish today. It's not a bad idea.
I think it's not a bad idea. Definitely. What do you think about you show up late to class and you have to wait till the instructor acknowledges you and then you bow and then you step on the mat? Otherwise, you can't come onto the mat.
I could see it, but I can also see not doing it. Like meaning, I could see being like, if you're it's the same way how you do it. If you're loud and obnoxious, that's really bad. But you just kind of quietly slip in and take your seat, and, in a respectful, humble way.
Right.
That's fine too, right? I mean,
I think so. I have noticed over the years that it's often the same people that show up late. You know what I mean? You got your on-time people and your late people. And it can be, if somebody's always coming in and they've not only missed the warm-up, but they missed the instructional part of class, and people are drilling the technique, and they come in and they're like, so what are we doing? That's
Right,
a little bit of inconvenience in consideration, right?
So
I got to tell the whole lesson again because you came in late.
So to put it all together, I think, again, that's okay. If the person that's late is like, hey, sorry, like sort of expresses sort of humility, comes in, sorry, I'm late, and sorry, but could you tell me what you're doing?
Right.
This kind of thing. Then you wouldn't need a rule to be like, well, now you need to wait till I let you on.
Oh, right.
But if people are continually doing it disrespectfully or just sort of sloppily, then
I think you hit on a key point, Dan. If you have sort of smart, aware people, they don't need a lot of rules because they're just going to be. It's all about being considerate to somebody else, right?
That might come up with a lot of these, right? Like if people are eating a sandwich on the mat, maybe you're like, well, now you need to like bow before you know what I mean? Like before you come in, like, and think about
now you have
being
to leave.
Respectful. And, well, right. Or like if you're going to call me Connors, now we're going to go with Professor. Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you're like, but if you're respectful, then you can call me what you want. That probably applies to, maybe this is the key to the meaning of why you need etiquette, where you're like, because if we don't have it,
chaos can ensue.
There's people, it's like, look how he's pouring that tea. Like an animal.
Like an animal. I think, Dan, if you don't have a lot of rules, sort of written, explicit rules of behavior, then everyone has to sort of be more self-aware and more on point. Like, so the whole group has to be like, watching their own behavior. I was talking to somebody about this about culture in the academy. I was naive when I started the academy. I thought, I'm a nice guy. I'll treat people nice. We'll have a nice culture at the academy. And I realized it's not that simple. You have to tend to the culture on a daily basis as if you would weed a garden. And pretty much all the more experienced students have to be tending to the garden too. It can't just be the head instructor. Everybody's going to say, we really don't do things that way here. This is the way that we kind of approach things,
Right.
Otherwise, you get one bad apple in there, and they can start polluting the whole culture. Number 5, lining up by rank. So I was doing this. I stopped doing it. So we used to line up by rank at the end of class and then bow out. I'm not doing that anymore.
That makes sense. I see why you do it, sort of give a little respect to the people that have been doing it longer or whatever. But now, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but if the whole philosophy is on improving yourself and not focusing on rank, then that's at odds with.
It's at odds with the focusing on your development. The good thing about it is it puts a hard stop to the class so that if you have a new class starting, you get a cleaner transition of class. You know what I mean? Right. But I'm not as concerned about that anymore. But I do like the fact that when we do it that way, basically everyone acknowledges everyone else. Like you kind of go through a line and shake hands, and everyone says,
you still
see
do
you
that
next class.
line where everyone shakes hands? Or
we stopped doing it because of COVID, of course. You know?
Right. Did it not pick back up?
It didn't, because I'm not lining people up anymore. So maybe we'll do what you're saying, circle people up, and then they can shake hands that way. I think there's value in that, because if everyone shakes hands with everyone else in the room, even if they don't train with them, they start to establish a relationship and a bond with them. Don't you think? Yeah. I think that's probably
kind of nice, kind of friendly, right?
I was going to say no Irish goodbyes. You know, where you just sneak out and don't say goodbye to anybody.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you have to, right? Like I have to leave 10 minutes early.
That's different.
Kind of get out of here.
But it's probably good to say goodbye to your instructor and training
that's
partners.
more friendly, because also it's in the absence of it what happens, and then maybe something mayhem. People are just kind of, some people are still rolling, some people are leaving, and the class starts, and maybe you need something to kind of like, our class is over.
Okay. How about this one, Dan? At some places it's taboo to ask a higher belt to roll with you.
I've heard of that one, right?
Yeah. Not at our academy, of course, but so I don't like that rule.
I don't feel it. It never even crossed my mind anyone could ever anyone could ask to roll. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I just never.
I think that's another thing that's overly concerned with status and hierarchy. And
Yeah,
I don't want to
flip
look
side,
bad.
I never thought of who's asking me to roll. I never really thought about who I'm asking to roll. I mean, maybe I don't know.
I
if
think you
this,
should, Dan. No, honestly,
Yeah.
like if sometimes, if somebody asked me to roll, I'm the head instructor and different. But let's say I was a high-level purple belt at the academy, and some white belt that's been training for 2 days comes over and says, "Hey, you want to roll?" I might say, "No, I don't want to roll with you. It's a complete waste of my time. I'm going to roll with Steve over here, and then him and I are going to learn something. You actually should be doing some other sort of training, not just rolling with me." I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, the academy has changed since I was last rolling. Like, I think I had this mindset of I'll roll with anybody at any time.
Oh yeah,
of any rank, any size, any
I've always pretty much
hard
been
they want
that
to
way.
go, soft they want to go. It's all fine.
Yeah,
but I could see that where you're like, if with a greater focus, and you're like, hey, I'm working on something. I can't,
yeah.
But even then it could be friendly. Like, sorry, I'm working on something, but like it's not personal.
Yeah,
like I'm working on something with him, but I'm happy to roll with you later. Something
right,
like that.
Right.
What do you think about this? I've heard this from very high level people that are like, say you weigh 150 pounds, like just don't ever roll with a 220-pound guy. Like you'll get hurt,
advice.
and in what's the point?
Until you're at a high enough level that you know how to protect yourself adequately.
Well, these were very, very high level, and they were just like, I don't want to roll with a 240-pound guy. I'll just get hurt.
I get it. I get it. Yeah.
And they can handle guys that big, and they were like, I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to.
You probably increase your odds of injury just because you're moving just heavier loads. It's more mass.
And also, I mean, you were doing super heavyweight tournament, like you were seeking out that kind of. But if you weren't,
if you're competing strictly against people your own size, it's almost a waste of time to train with people that aren't around that size.
Well, so what's Rory compete at? Like,
he's at like 160.
So if he's competing all the time 160, should he roll 240,
No.
250? You know what I mean? It's
No.
sort of.
And they move different, and you do different things. So you're developing skills that aren't going to apply that much to what you're doing. So, but he does the open weight a lot though too at these tournaments when he can. So it's all good. Okay, Dan. Some places require a white gi only.
Yeah,
I'm never going to do that, man. That rule seems so weird because back in the day, I sound like an old geezer, but it felt like jiu-jitsu was for like the surfer dudes. It's just like, we don't care what you look like. We don't care what kind of gi you have. Like, just do the art.
That's still how I feel, though.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even care if it's a goofy gi, people camouflage gi or like pink gi, a guy in a pink gi. Like, I don't even, like, maybe it's me, but I don't even, like, focus on clothes or in general. Like, I sort of don't, like, if you asked what gis did people that I've trained with for 10 years, what did they wear? I don't remember. I don't remember gi you wore. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't.
How dare you?
And if you just said, remember my dark green gi, I'd be like, you did? I don't remember. You know what I mean? Like, I don't remember that. Like, it just doesn't, I don't. Then again, I don't remember, like, if I turned around now and you said, do I have a beard? I'd be like, I have no idea. I don't focus on these kinds of things.
I've been leaning toward the black keys lately just because they hold up.
That's
under
what they don't.
better.
The white ones turn like that gray color. And,
definitely.
Yeah, I'd get a black key only for that reason.
I heard, I don't know where, some places require you to be clean shaven. Like, you can't have a beard. One of my buddies,
it's like the Yankees.
Paul Rosado, he went to some famous place. I forget where it was. He's got a beard. They're like, yeah, you can't train with a beard.
That's weird. The only thing I'll say about that, there's something really grosses me out when like a guy's stubble like rubs against me.
Gross.
I'm just like, this is very unnatural. I'm just like, this is really, I don't know. It's just one of the worst parts of jiu-jitsu for me.
I hear you.
Like a man's stubble rubbing against my cheek, or I'm just. That said, I mean, that's crazy. I mean, everyone has beards now. I mean,
yeah, that's a little too rigid for me.
Yeah,
I don't know what's going on there.
No long hair though. You should have that.
Well, some guys
military cut now.
Oh man, some guys, Dan, they come in, they got this wild hair. They look like Charles Manson, and they haven't washed it in 2 weeks. It's disgusting. And you're getting hit with like a wet, filthy lock is whipping over and hitting you in the face. It's like, dude, what the hell are you doing, man? Or they put on a man. Get out of here with that stuff.
I assume a whole different topic is like hygiene and like that, because that's important. But
yeah,
not a beard. I mean, come on.
It's a little different. I guess it falls under etiquette, but it's all common sense, right? Wash your clothes and have, cut your fingernails and
have your deodorant and
whatever if you need it.
Don't be disgusting.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Don't be disgusting. Try to be as least disgusting as you possibly can.
Because it's disgusting enough. I've said before, I've felt bad at myself when I'm like there's the occasional time where you just like sweat right onto somebody, like beads of sweat pour off you onto someone's face, and you're like, that was gross.
You want to hear a vile one?
Sorry, man.
You want to hear a vile one? I was training with Tyler King. I was getting ready for that EBI rules match I had, so I was on his back, and so I get back control on him, and I'm on the side where I'm under his arm, his head's above my head. I got my head between him and the mat, and I'm struggling to submit him, but I'm like, I'm just going to hold on to this guy as long as possible because that's part of the rules.
Yeah.
If you hold, and so I was holding there for a long time. I got a good position, and his head's shaven, so all the sweat's pouring off his bald head on top of me, and then the round ends or whatever he gets out, and then my ear is then waterlogged
with sweat,
with Tyler's sweat pouring down my ear. This isn't going to be good for marketing for the academy. Dan, for like 3 weeks, I couldn't hear out of that ear.
Right.
Yeah, I had
to get sweat in your ear for
weeks. Yeah.
That's
then Chad Lightfoot's brother Cody, I don't know if you know him, great guy. He went down with us to Dallas for the Pans, and he said, "Oh yeah, they have drops for swimmer's ear, and it's like a rubbing alcohol, isopropanol, or something that you put in there. It helps evaporate." So it took like a week of dropping that stuff in there for my ear to finally clear up.
Does it work on sweat? Are you sure it might be for?
It worked. Yeah. I don't know. It worked. Yeah, talk about hygiene. Holy cow.
Do you apologize when your sweat just pours off onto someone? Do you like? What's the etiquette there? You go, hey, sorry.
That's a good question.
Hey, sorry.
Yeah.
So it depends. Again,
it depends. Sometimes I'll be coaching guys, and I'll jump in and I'll say, "Hey, Brendan, let me show you this from bottom half guard." And the guy that I'm demonstrating with, he's got the full sweat going. So that guy's bumming because it's just ripping off his head, pouring on top of me. I don't really care that much, but whatever.
I mean, if you're too sensitive about sweat, this is the wrong sport.
Probably not the right sport for you. Yeah. Some places don't like you wearing a gi with another academy's patch on it. I kind of get it. I don't really give a shit.
I get it a little bit. Again, it's all the nuance, right? If someone's like, I'm brand new, it's my old gi, I just came here. I don't know if it was years later. Maybe
I still wouldn't care.
You still don't care?
Nah. How about this one? I heard if you go, I'm not sure which academy this is. I think it's one of the more famous ones. If you go to there to train as a black belt, they don't let you wear your black belt. You have to wear like a special black belt with like a line through the middle of it.
Like a visitor black belt.
Visitor black belt. That's a little weird, isn't it?
I mean, come on.
What's going on there?
What are you doing here? Like even say someone, if the idea is someone came from an inferior school, which is I guess what they're trying to say. Like you don't have one of our black belts.
Well, I think they're trying to say is if you get on the mat and you look like a jackass and you're wearing a black belt, then people might assume that you're one of our black belts. And you're not some jackass black belt. I think I would pass on going to that place. I don't think I would visit
people that place. People could sort out that that's a visitor, right? I mean,
here's another kind of etiquette thing. This was back in the day, Dan. They used to say you can't teach no-gi to white belts. It's unethical. It's immoral, Dan. How dare you?
That's
How stupid was that? So back when I started my place in 2005, we were in the East Dedham, probably the lower socioeconomical side of Dedham, and we boarded Hyde Park, and we had these young guys come in that had 2 nickels to rub together. That was it. They I can either pay for a month or I can buy a gi. I can't do both. I was like, hey, man, just wear your T-shirt and shorts, whatever, man. And
You're some of the lifelong guys, right?
maybe, but back then I caught some heat from, nobody said it directly, but I would hear it through the grapevine that, it's scandalous. He's teaching no
That
gi.
one is pretty cut and dry for me.
Then a few years went by, and now everybody's doing it,
Yeah.
of course. So I actually think it's better to learn the fundamentals no gi than gi. I think it's probably better to start no gi than you could add gi. That's my take on it. And the same with leg locks. Leg locks was the big taboo.
Right.
If you teach a white belt a leg lock, you're somehow a monster. You know what I mean?
I also think that too, because I get the idea is that you can blow out a knee, but I don't think it's that tricky to explain. Like, don't crank that. Like it's not that tricky a concept.
Right.
Like if you get this, don't crank it.
It applies to paintbrushes or Kimuras, anything, right?
Yeah.
I think Danaher believes that the Kimura is potentially much more destructive than the knee locks, anyways, the heel hooks. So I don't know. Leg locks, yeah. Oh, okay. What about I looked up some videos. In one video, they're talking about BJJ etiquette. And this one woman was saying you got to have your belt tied. Like you don't want your belt laying. So when the round ends, you got to grab your belt and tie it up again. Yeah, right.
I mean, because that happens all the time. They
Right.
come loose, they lie there, you're exhausted.
Yeah.
I
do think when you're adjusting your gear, like your pants, sometimes you have to retie your pants.
Yeah.
You probably should face away from the center of the mat. What do you think? Like turn toward the wall a little bit, just to be.
I guess I'm
little
probably
conservative.
guilty of it because I've probably retied my pants. I don't.
Believe me, we've had some sites
some-
happening at our academy that yeah.
So I can see. So you're saying
Some
so it
people would
depends
name nameless who would be like dressing like out in front where the parents are sitting, watching their kids' class, and I'm like, could you not get naked in front of the parents and their kids? Like, what the hell are we doing? I'm just kidding. I'm exaggerating. That never happened, but you know what I mean. There's another one where you're supposed to give the upper belts space if you're rolling on the mat and you sort of get close to each other.
I a little bit agree with that.
Yeah.
In that I a little bit think it's not even just upper belts. It could be if there's two 70-year-olds rolling and you're like, it's just about respect. Like, it's like,
right.
Don't crash into them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I definitely.
Well, I also have noticed that in general, it's often two really rambunctious white belts start taking up a lot of territory on the mat, just spazzing out.
That said, if it's an accident, it's an accident.
Right. Yeah.
But sometimes it feels like guys, like they're banging into black belts or people that are training for a tournament. You're like, guys, like, move away.
Have
like,
some
you
awareness.
Move.
Of
Yeah,
what's
have
going
some
on.
awareness and move away.
Yeah.
But I'm sure at some point I've also probably accidentally rolled into like where black belts are training and been like, I did not notice. Like, if it's an accident, it's an accident. I get that.
Yeah.
But I do think I'm not totally like, who cares about that at all. Like, I do think you should be a little respectful, especially if you do notice, because I've had it before.
Courtesy, right?
I've seen white belts or blue belts been like, could we get some room here to like someone that's been, and and that, like,
right.
if
that
you're a little like,
right. Yeah.
did you just say that to John? Like, what are you talking about? Like, that, you know what I mean? Like, when it gets that far, you're like, that's wrong.
I guess that's why we have these conventions. It's just it's for the real dopey people.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
It's for the percentage that can't adjust properly.
Yeah,
right?
I think so.
And then if enough people do it, then you're like, now we need a rule in the academy because I get the level of dopiness has exceeded some sort of. There's too many.
Well, we have a sign out in front of the bathrooms: "Do not enter the bathrooms barefoot." You wouldn't think you would need that sign, but actually you do. Yeah, and that's like just disgusting, but people will do it. So I don't know. Here's one that I had this guy a couple times came into one of our open mats, Dan, and he wasn't a student, and he would just show up and just start rolling.
Not even say anything to you.
Not even say anything to me. I'm like, that's like me going to your house and opening your fridge and start making a sandwich for myself.
If
and not
don't
even
know
saying
that,
hello
they
to you.
should at least. again, you forget what it's like. Maybe if someone's real young, they don't know, so they just.
This guy wasn't that young. He was just a dummy. Yeah. I saw on one of these other videos somebody said, which I don't buy this at all, that you shouldn't just go get water when you need water. You should only go at the assigned water breaks, which I think that makes no sense. I think if you need water, go get some water.
Not in 2021.
Yeah. And the same for bathroom breaks. If you need to go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom.
Yeah. Just go, hey, sorry, I got to go.
We had this student, Dan, back in Dedham. I won't say his name. He's a great guy. Very funny guy, though. So I did my class. We did a warm-up. I did the presentation, and, we drilled the technique, and then it became time to train. Mm-hmm. So he's standing there with his partner, and I'm like, okay, guys, here's how we want to train. We're going to get into the half guard, and the guy on top is going to do this, and blah, 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 okay? And we're going to go live. You guys ready? Let's go. And the guy goes, excuse me? I'm like, yeah. He goes, John? I go, yeah. He goes, I have diarrhea. Can I go to the bathroom?
Yeah.
By all means, sir.
In fact, next time, just go.
Just go.
Next time.
Diarrhea supersedes everything else
in life. I don't even think you can get a ticket. You can go 100 miles an hour. The police will be like, it's fine.
Diarrhea. That's the free pass for everything.
Yeah.
That's the free hall pass for everything.
And about the water, though, it sounds like so. I got to take a little bit cranky old guy. Like it's like young kids. Like when we were doing sports, the coaches would be like, "No water for you."
Yeah,
right?
you do a 2-hour football practice with no water. Yeah,
and like to toughen you up.
Yeah.
Then a few people died, and they're like, "All right, everyone, I guess you can all have water."
Yeah.
But now it's like a generation of water. Like my kids will be like,
unbelievable.
Oh my God, I almost went to school without my water bottle. You know what I mean? Like, oh, whew. You know, like you couldn't make it a day without your water bottle. And like, so I sometimes think that at the academy, many, many times I'm sitting there and a lot of people are more fit than me. And like, but they're like water break and everyone runs. And I'm like the only one sitting on the mat. Like, am I the only one who doesn't need water every 5 minutes? Like, so I think the flip side is a little bit like everyone's like, I need water all the time. And it's like, maybe you don't need water that much.
I agree, Dan.
You know?
Yeah. That's very fun. Yeah, the young kids, they're crazy. If they don't have a water bottle in their hand, they get a little anxious sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'll be like, I need water before they even started training.
Yeah.
Right. I always thought that, like, when you were like, are you ready to go? He's going to be like, I need water. You know, like, could you roll a little first?
We used to have this student, Dan. This guy got under my skin. He would come in late, of course. He'd roll in, and we have these big orange fans that I only like to use them as a last resort. So we had them on this week because this week was particularly hot. It was in the 90s, you know. But when they're going, you can't hear anything. So I shut them off for instruction. Right. And then when people are rolling, generally I'll put them on as needed if it's 93 degrees or 95 degrees or something. But this one guy would come in. He would turn on one of the fans, and then he'd walk down to the other side of the mat, the other side of the room, and turn on the other fan. And then he would sit down like completely in front of it, blocking the whole thing. And he hadn't even started yet. I'm like, what kind of polar bear are you where you need a fan, an industrial-sized fan blasting on you before you start your jiu-jitsu? I think you got a temperature management problem there, buddy.
And I get it's 2021, but there's an element of toughness to the sport, right? Like Dan,
yeah.
Like, and so there's again, I'm not saying dehydrate yourself, but like suck it up a little bit. It's like suck it up as part of this, of jiu-jitsu and MMA, and like suck it up. As part
be
of
a little uncomfortable.
Yeah,
that's part of martial arts, is dealing with feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah,
definitely. Okay, now the last one I have here is somebody mentioned in one of these videos that it's not super cool for white belts to be coaching other students.
Well, I mean,
what do you think? While they're rolling, so they're like, there's two students rolling, and the guy's on the sideline yelling.
I know this sounds like I'm supposed to be really nice and be like, no, anyone that has, we're all trying to improve, but I kind of agree. Like,
Yeah.
I've definitely seen that a lot of like white belts. Like, I've seen it with like a black belt instructor watching the match, and the white belt chiming in advice, and it was like it would be as if you're I think I've seen it with you.
Yeah.
Like you're watching, and there's like a white belt next to you, or it doesn't have to be a white belt. Pretty much a blue belt, or and they're yelling in advice, and it's just like John's there. Like, you know what I mean? Like, don't you're shouting over them. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
And
and sometimes they're wrong.
Yeah, and they're
You know what I
often
mean?
shouting the three things that they've heard.
Right.
Breathe.
Yeah.
Breathe. Just something silly like that.
Or just something like, go for, guillotine. And you're like, no, that's not a good time for a guillotine.
Right.
Like, you're actually giving bad advice.
Yeah. And you know what? It's training. He doesn't need your advice. He doesn't need to win this round.
But
Just
I'm
let him go out
also-
there and figure it out.
But I'm even crankier than I'm making it sound, because I think if I was rolling and like a new white belt was yelling perfectly good advice to me, I'd still be like, shut the fuck up. Like, you know what I mean? I'd be like, part of me would be like, who are you? Like,
well, even as the instructor, Dan, I'll occasionally suggest something to one of the students, or, after the round ends or comes to some closure, I'll say, hey, Michael, I have a piece of information you might find useful. Let me show you something, and then I'll show them.
but that's actually, I should say, that's a big part of it, is tone of voice again, where it's sort of like, there's ways of doing it. You know what I mean? There's ways of like sort of trying
thing,
to say
though,
a humble, friendly suggestion,
Right.
and then there's like a arrogant
Then-
shouting.
Then there's that thing where any beginner or novice where there's things that they know, things that they don't know. Then there's things that they don't know that they don't know.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like they have such a small context to put things within that they probably should be pretty cautious about yelling advice and spouting
I
advice.
mean, how would you feel if you were rolling, you were getting ready with Rory for a thing, and some white belt started yelling?
Well, that would be
advice?
absurd.
You'd
Yeah.
just be like, stop.
That'd be
Quiet, be
absurd.
quiet.
Yeah.
Like-
Well, what happens is
Yeah.
often when I'm rolling with somebody else starts coaching or cheering on
Yeah.
my sparring partner,
Yeah.
and then
Like, what?
we're kicking this up to 11 now, man.
I've been on the receiving end of that.
Yeah.
Where people are yelling like things to me,
yeah.
and I'm like, well, now he's going to kick my ass. Like,
Yeah.
stop.
And
Like-
how's it helping you
Yeah.
if they're going, Dan, get the underhook?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, John speaks English too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I know, yeah.
So silly.
I think you heard that. And now he's getting irritated at you and taking it out on me. If you could stop, that'd
Stop
be great.
helping me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a little silly. Yeah. But needless to say, we have a really good culture at the Academy right now, better than ever. And that doesn't happen anymore, Dan. Honestly, I think, and one of the reasons why is that nobody's sitting around coaching other people and yelling at. They're too busy trying to develop their game.
Right.
So people are just on point when they're at the Academy now. So it's
I'm
really
wondering
good.
about, sometimes we do things like this. We've had like episodes, and I've been surprised. The feedback, people will be like, you were really cranky. Like that was a whole crank fest. And I'll be like, I didn't think it was that bad. Like, I thought we were, and we've had crankier episodes than this. It was like things you shouldn't do in the Academy.
Oh,
or
right,
something
right,
like that.
yeah.
But like, I thought, again, it was like pretty clear we're kind of, being kind of easygoing about it. And
we don't have all the answers, Dan, right?
Yeah.
We're still maybe we
I wouldn't go that far. Let's not get crazy. But you know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
sort of like we're not thinking of anyone in particular. We're not like.
And I
really
think you could
bitching.
boil it all down to show up to develop yourself and help your training partners to develop, and just be a courteous, considerate person.
That's it. Yeah.
And you can't go wrong, right?
Yeah. Not everyone knows how to do that, but
Fortunately.
but we'll give them one of these little cards at the door.
That's it. An etiquette.
Yeah.
Here
Yeah,
is your
exactly.
etiquette. Your etiquette.
Yeah. So we'll know that things are going not well at the gym if you start handing out little cards.
Little cards
when
to
people
them.
come in.
Yeah. Dear dummy, clean your gi. Yeah, I should get some of those made up. Yeah.
People like, I noticed you didn't give these cards to everybody.
Definitely. All right, Dan. That's all I have. Do you have any other words on etiquette?
Now, next time, next time it'll be tea ceremonies and the non-jiu-jitsu etiquette.
Exactly.
Salad fork. And,
Yeah.
Which fork to use, which spoon.
Fishbone. That's the real esoteric one. I like that one. All right, man. Well, thank you, everyone. Please subscribe if you're not subscribed already. I'm furious. You're free riding on us, free rolling on us. Subscribe. Tell your friends about us. I think we're at 686 subscribers, Dan. We got to get to over 1,000. I need it bad. Let's get it done. Thank you, folks.
Subscribe, everybody.
See you next week.